Don't worry, it's only 5 miles or so, and we're in no hurry. We returned to our mutual silence, but now that I'd sensed her nervousness, it was not as comfortable as it had been before. "What are you thinking?" I finally asked, unable to stop myself. I felt like I'd asked it so many times before, and I never knew if she was telling me the whole truth or filtering for my benefit. "Just wondering where we're going," she said lightly. "It's a place I like to go when the weather is nice," I said, glancing at the clouds Alice promised would be gone by later this morning. "Charlie said it would be warm today," Bella said, and I saw she too was watching the clouds. I knew she'd been curious about the mystery of my appearance in the sun, and I could feel her growing more anxious as the moment of truth approached. "And did you tell Charlie what you were up to?" I asked hopefully. "Nope. I'd suspected as much." "But Jessica thinks we're going to Seattle together?" I confirmed. As much as I hated to think of Jessica during our date together, reminding myself without a doubt that I would be held responsible if Bella went missing seemed like the wisest thing to do. "No, I told her you canceled on me," which is true. Although we'd been in the car together without the burning in my throat feeling too torturous, in that moment it raged forth and took over my senses. "No one knows you're with me?" the monster asked darkly. "That depends. I assume you told Alice?" "That's very helpful, Bella." My voice was far too harsh and I hated myself for snapping at her, but I couldn't contain all the things that were simultaneously running through me. Fear. Doubt. Thirst. "Are you so depressed by Forks that it's made you suicidal?" I asked, too viciously again. I had to get myself under control. "You said it might cause trouble for you us being together publicly," she said calmly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world she were discussing. "So you're worried about the trouble it might cause me, if you don't come home?" I was nearly snarling at her, though some remaining sane portion of my brain told me that she'd been acting out of the best intentions. The fact that those intentions were utterly absurd, however, was hard to ignore. She didn't speak again, but nodded in response to my accusation. Looking for any outlet to channel my frustration, I started muttering unintelligibly under my breath. Of all the ridiculous things. She's looking out for me, doesn't even care about herself at all. How am I supposed to keep her safe when she has no sense of self-preservation? No wonder she's always getting into trouble. I could feel the anxiety radiating from her, and I was determined to regain my composure by the time we arrived at the end of the road. She parked and got out of the car without looking at me, and I glanced over my shoulder to see her taking off her sweater. The heat didn't much matter to me, but I had liked the way we matched earlier. Anything to remind me we weren't different in every possible way. I decided to do the same. "This way," I said, motioning in the opposite direction she had started to walk. "The trail?" she asked, and I felt a twinge of guilt for having misled her. I heard her frenzied steps as she circled the truck and nearly stumbled to my side. I said there was a trail at the end of the road, not that we were taking it. "No trail?" she asked wearily. I'd been hoping for something that would put the monster back in this cage, and sure enough, her panic was enough to remind me of my role as her protector. "I won't let you get lost," I promised, smiling as I turned to look at her. I had expected her to relax at my assurance, or at the very least offer a smile like she usually did when she wanted to show me she trusted me. Maybe I'd done more damage than I realized by speaking so angrily to her before. "Do you want to go home?" I asked, part of me hoping to be granted the reprieve, but a bigger part eager to show her the place that was so special to me. We'd come this far, it seemed a shame to waste the day and the sun that was surely on its way. "No," she said, stepping closer to me. She looked close to tears. "What's wrong?" I asked softly, cursing myself for having upset her. "I'm not a good hiker." "You'll have to be very patient," she said, and even without being able to read her mind, I knew she wasn't telling me the truth. Still, I didn't want to force her to talk about anything she wasn't comfortable with. "I can be patient," I said, playing along. "If I make a great effort." I tried to make my voice light and teasing, hoping to urge a smile from her. Though the corner of her mouth turned up, she still looked miserable. Great. I'd ruined our whole day because of my own fears and insecurities. So what if no one knew we were together? I knew we were together, and that I was personally responsible for keeping her safe. That would be enough. It would have to be. When she still didn't speak, I sighed deeply. "I'll take you home," I offered, giving her one more chance to retreat if it was what she truly wanted. I felt I was back to my former, more trustworthy self, but if I'd frightened her too deeply to proceed, I would respect her wishes. "If you want me to hack 5 miles through the jungle before sundown, you'd better start leading the way." She nearly spat the words at me, and I was baffled that her mood seemed to be shifting as often as mine today. Usually she was much more level-headed. She stood, glaring at me, and I eventually realized she was waiting for me to decide. Although at the moment, neither of us seemed emotionally stable enough to go through with our plans, I started walking because I knew I couldn't disappoint her. I was sure that once her own anger dissipated, she would remember what this day was about. It was about trust, answering questions, and sharing secrets. It was about us, and what we could potentially be to each other if we put our fears aside. It was Bella and I, away from the world and prying eyes, unashamed and honest. It was about me learning how far the monster inside could be pushed, how strong the protector would have to be to silence the thirst. It was about Bella figuring out just how deeply into my world she could allow herself to be thrown, while still remaining true to her own. It was the ultimate balancing act. We trudged along, Bella keeping up better than I think she or I had anticipated. I helped her over a few difficult areas, the electricity between us unbelievably heightened each time I touched her skin. Occasionally, I noticed her glancing in my direction, though her expression was unreadable. Hoping to break her from her sullen mood, I started asking questions about her childhood again. I asked anything and everything I could think of to try to make her smile. Eventually, she started to relax again, and I noticed it made her pace speed up slightly. The more animated she got talking about her life, the faster she seemed to climb over the trees and rocks. She even stumbled significantly less. As the hours passed, the clouds began to disappear. The sun was shining, but the trees created such a dense cover above us, I knew my secret would be safe a little while longer. Bella's face was alight with joy when she noticed the sun through the trees, and she sped up her pace yet again. "Are we there yet?" she asked, feigning a frown at me. "Nearly," I promised, feeling my own anticipation growing. "Do you see the brightness ahead?" Should I?" she asked, squinting. "Maybe it's a bit soon for your eyes," I teased. "Time to visit the optometrist," she mumbled, rolling her eyes. I slowed down a bit as the sunlit meadow came into view. It was a place I'd retreated to many times, and I was thrilled to finally be sharing it with her. It had been a place of solitude, but now I felt certain its true beauty would be even more pronounced, because I would no longer have to be there alone. Bella was hurrying towards the stream of light, looking like an explorer about to unlock a hidden treasure. I walked a few steps behind her, basking in her excitement, and found myself holding my breath as she stepped into the sunlight. Her skin bathed in the warm light and her hair shining like spun gold, she had never looked more beautiful. From beneath the trees, I watched in awe as she took in her surroundings. Her face was filled with pure joy, and I vowed in that moment to do anything for her, take her anywhere, if it meant she could always look that happy. For a moment, I simply breathed, letting the smells of the forest mingle with Bella's perfectly torturous scent. I embraced the way it teased and tormented me, because it meant we were together, and I was in control of my need. Taking another deep breath, I let her happiness become my own. Her peace was my peace. Midnight Sun Twilight Chapter 13 EPOV There was nothing else in that moment but us, and the knowledge that my place of refuge no longer belonged to me alone.